Okay, here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the JL Fit Life podcast. I'm your host, Jackie Lavadia, and today I have a very special guest, my friend Cierra from Not Mother Goose. So if you don't follow her on Instagram, you definitely should. So her handle is literally at Not Mother Goose. Cierra and I got connected in 2020, I think it was, right in the middle of the pandemic during lockdowns.
That's right.
I don't remember. I know we got connected on Instagram. I don't remember if I found you or you found me and how we started talking, but we started talking.
Yes. Yes.
And then we met up for a walk outside because that was one thing we could do. And it was dead winter.
Yes.
Actually, probably around this time of year, I guess.
Probably
January, right?
It was, yeah.
So Cierra, if you want to do a little intro about yourself and what brought you to where you are now.
Yes, for sure. So I, as Jackie said, I started an Instagram page called Not Mother Goose, and that was kind of surrounding my own personal experiences with postpartum depression and anxiety. And going through the pandemic, I felt really alone in those thoughts and feelings. I didn't really have any friends that had a lot of children at the time. So I think it was my way to connect with people. And then I slowly started realizing how much other people felt the same way and how alone I actually wasn't. And I think it just kind of snowballed from there. I started taking more trainings and more courses in perinatal mental health. I started helping out with Flora's Walk, which is a fundraising campaign for perinatal mental health. And now I'm working on my master's in that area as well to become a psychotherapist and just be able to reach and help as many moms that I possibly can and their families.
That's amazing. And you have a background in social work right now, right?
That's right.
Your practice right now.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Right. Yeah. And yeah, Flora's Walk is another amazing fundraiser and just something that's so overlooked, I feel with postpartum and the craziness that can really happen with your mental health during postpartum. And it's and it's so funny. It's one of those things you don't get it until you're in it. And I'm really happy that a lot of these things are being brought up now, because especially even for my friends who don't have kids but want kids, and being prepared for that, the possibilities that can happen with your hormones and with the different things that kind of contribute to your mental health during the postpartum period. And even beyond that too, you're never not postpartum after you have a kid, I feel
That's right. I feel that too.
Yeah, it's just it changes as your kids grow up and have different needs and stuff like that. Yeah. So Flora's Walk, if anybody does not know about Flora's Walk, so Flora was sadly a mom who suffered from, what was her diagnosis again? Do you remember?
Well,
I know you know.
Yes. So it was postpartum psychosis. I'm not sure if she was ever formally diagnosed. That's kind of a part of her story, is that she's one that slipped under the cracks. And 2 months after having a baby, she took her life by suicide because of the psychosis and not getting the help for it. That was back in 2021. So quickly, the campaign was thrown together after that to help bring awareness to that tragedy and all the other mothers who experienced that as well.
Yeah. Oh, it breaks my heart. I just
I know.
Can't imagine her child, right? It's just such a tragedy. And COVID in particular too, mom, and I don't want to downplay motherhood as a whole, but COVID, and you and I both experienced that, moms during the depths of the pandemic. And you were a new mom because you had just had your son a few months before COVID happened, right?
Yes.
And then so we both navigating that during that time. And I know there was some silver linings for sure. I did kind of that I wasn't bombarded with people who wanted to visit. I really got a lot of connection time with my son during that time. But at the same time, I felt there's so many things I was missing out on that I had looked forward to. But Yeah, I know for me, and like obviously I'm a health and fitness coach, so I'm a
Mhm.
little bit biased, but that was like the one thing that kept my head above water was focusing on exercise and
Mhm.
using that not just to like make myself feel good physically, but like from a mental standpoint, it was
Of
just like
course.
something I needed to do because it I knew it was going to make me feel better mentally and just like give myself those little that boost in order to yeah,
Of
keep my
course.
head above water.
And it does. That's what the research shows with exercise and hormones being able to kind of balance. That's and postpartum, that is what you're going through is a mix of hormones
Mhm.
all being out of whack. I honestly am recalling us talking about this on our first
Yeah.
walk that we had about just how difficult it was and what we were doing to get through it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And you're a walker too. Like you
Yeah.
enjoy your walks. And now you're
Hmm.
doing lots of walking for Flora's Walk and raising
I
awareness
know.
and stuff like that too.
Yeah, it's funny it turned out that way, but yeah, I started walking during COVID for my mental health. Like that was I was not going to lose weight or to bounce back or anything
No.
like that. It was like, okay, I've been told over and over again this will help me, and if that's all I can do for myself today, that's what I have to do. So,
Yeah, 100%.
hmm.
Um, so we were going to touch base on this. I don't even know if it what the theory is called, but
Hmm.
there's a theory going around on social media about glass balls versus rubber balls.
Hmm.
And what the idea is a way of kind of helping yourself to prioritize the different things in your life that you need to juggle. And I actually like kind of visually, like in my head, I kind of like can see this because
Hmm.
as moms, and not just newly postpartum moms, but throughout the phases of being a mom, you have so many things to juggle. So like your
Hmm.
kids' needs, household things, appointments, I don't even know. Like, but then there's your own you're taking care of yourself too. And I feel
Hmm.
like there's so many moms that literally with you're juggling like all of these balls.
Yes.
And there's so many moms out there that don't know how to prioritize what things and are
Hmm.
constantly overwhelmed by all of the things that they have to juggle. So this theory kind of explains the glass ball versus rubber ball theory, which is your glass balls are the things that have to happen because if you were to drop them, they're going to shatter. And then therefore, it's going to impact other things in your life and things will be set back and whatnot. Whereas things that are categorized as rubber balls are things that, you know what, if you drop them, they're going to bounce back and it's not a big deal.
Hmm.
Um, so we were going to try to talk kind of a little bit more in depth about that and like how that can look for moms and how you can kind of decide which ones are glass balls and which ones are rubber balls and how that can kind of help you to like navigate your life and maybe make things I don't want easier but maybe a little bit simplified, I think.
Hmm. No, for sure. I think it's a really good metaphor. As you said, it's a good visual just to envision trying to balance glass balls and rubber balls. Think there are things that are glass that we don't have an option about, work responsibilities, childcare responsibilities. There's everyone's glass and rubber balls will look different. And I think it's a really good conversation to have, especially going into the new year, about how we can prioritize the things that are most important to us and making ourselves one of those balls as well. Hmm.
Yeah, like obviously again like I'm health and fitness, so I am
Hmm.
really passionate about the health aspect of it and feel like our health should be a glass ball.
Hmm.
And but I think the thing is that if you dive into it a little bit, that's where people get overwhelmed because they might not
Hmm.
know what to do. They might have certain expectations that might be a little bit unrealistic.
Hmm.
And like it's always and health is such a broad topic too. It's so multifaceted with like physical health and mental health and emotional health and like how do I
Hmm.
juggle all of that? Um, but I feel like a glass ball is essentially like what can you do today that's going to help you feel good in terms of like how your day is going or how your week is going, like what do you need right now, but and how
Hmm.
can you kind of like make sure that that becomes a priority. So that's where it's
Hmm.
like it can get really tricky, but I feel like if we can like view it as a glass ball, then it might be easier to be like, okay, you know what, I have to do this at some point today and make time for it.
Mm-hmm. For sure. That's what I was thinking, was how do we distinguish which balls are glass and which ones are rubber? And day to day, that might look different. Today, a glass ball might be a rubber ball tomorrow. But I think it's really good to like break it all the way down and step back from like, just, okay, when am I going to plan these into my schedule, as to like, what is it that you want as a glass ball for your day, and what can bounce, what can wait. I think like looking at our set of core values, our individual things that we hold really dear, like being mentally well and being physically well, health, that is, you know, a ball that we can tend to push it off into a rubber ball, but that has longer term consequences and
Oh,
not
absolutely.
addressing those things. So it's kind of like, I don't know, for me, when I'm deciding day to day what needs to happen today, it's like, okay, you have your responsibilities, but also things that are a priority to you
Yeah.
and yourself, and making those non-negotiable as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding that, like, because there's always, and I know from what I've experienced in working with some clients and stuff, there's always that superficial level of what health should look like, and that's when
Mm-hmm.
women are thinking a lot about what they look like,
Mm-hmm.
and like changing their bodies and things like that. But it's a harder, but it's when you dig into like those layers of why you're doing that, like
Mm-hmm.
it's not just about the long-term changes that you're looking for when it comes to your appearance,
Mm-hmm.
but the short-term kind of return of investment that you get when after you've, like, say, exercised or gone for a walk or something like that, because it's not just about changing your physique, it's about how you're going to feel mentally afterwards and the
Mm-hmm.
kind of space that it can create for you in order to better handle the rest of your day.
Mm-hmm.
um, so I've talked to my clients about return of investment.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about it, right, like you might have to make a small term sacrifice in order to fit in certain things for self-care, but
Yes.
the return of investment for making time for that one thing is a lot greater, because after you do that for yourself, you're going to have more space and more capacity and more patience for your kids
Mm-hmm.
to do for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that, but again, like that is something, that one task can be a number of different things. It can be an
Mm-hmm.
exercise session, it can be like walking, it can be like just taking some time to like de-stimulate or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. Or
For
even,
sure.
you know, having like a meal to yourself with like no kids around you or
Right.
something. So it can be a number of different things. It's just deciding which one it is.
For sure. And I think for moms well, women, but moms specifically, we are kind of always told and taught that all of our needs are rubber balls, and
Mm-hmm.
all of our self-care we can get to it later. And that involves yeah, like you said, many different activities or tasks, that whatever we classify self-care for ourselves. But I think making ourselves a glass ball in our lives, with
Yes.
our partners, with our family, and saying, this time actually is non-negotiable. I need to get this walk in so that I feel calm. I need to get this 20-minute workout in so I have a better sleep tonight. And it's
Yes.
letting other people around you know too that you're a priority to yourself and that you deserve that time. I think as moms, we're all sacrificing, I feel sometimes.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
sad.
There, there's always something that
Mm-hmm.
there's like a trade-off of things, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like, and that's the other like day-to-day thing that we're always deciding is like, what's the trade-off for this? Like because we're always trying to not just focus on ourselves and gives ourselves self-care, but then there's the needs of everybody else. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that a lot of people struggle with like, okay, well, I want to do my 20-minute workout, but then I'm not paying attention to my kids, and everybody
Mm-hmm.
says I need to pay attention to them like 24/7, and like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so there's always that struggle, like that
Yeah.
internal struggle. Like
The
I tell
guilt.
my clients too, like
Mm-hmm.
there's that angel and there's the devil kind of thing, and there's always that kind of like
Mm-hmm.
internal conversation with yourself where sometimes it's hard to know which one to do, but that like we have to make sure that we are on some level taking care of ourselves, because if we're not taken care of, then how are we supposed to take care of other people? But
Exactly.
I love that you brought that up, because like it's so true. Like we're all kind of taught, and I don't know if it's like a generational thing that's been passed down from generation to generation, and now it's our generation that's kind of identifying that like, hey, like this isn't cool. But breaking that cycle is like incredibly difficult, but also really cool in the sense of like we are now the example to our kids and to our daughters, and like the girls that are coming after us, that you are important too, and that even though we tend to be caregivers, it doesn't mean that we can't care for ourselves as well, or like make that room for ourselves too.
For sure. Yeah, I think we all deserve that. And that it is uncomfortable to recognize that pattern and to do something about it, right? Because I can continue to say, well, I'm going to put myself on the back burner to be a quote unquote good mom, a great mom. But growth is uncomfortable, and the consequence of not doing that is continue to feeling burnt out, right?
Yes.
So when we're able to, and it seems like we're being assertive or aggressive by saying, well, actually, like, this is what I need, and this is the time I need, and this is my priority. But that's not selfish, and it's not like, it's changing the mindset around a lot of those things. The guilt, we might inherently feel the guilt, but we can reprogram ourselves to think of it as, I am taking care of my family by taking care of myself as well.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's like your own boundaries on yourself too, of like that reminder that, you know, I might feel guilty right now, but I'm not going to regret it if I were to complete it as well too. And I think that's the other part, is like, well, what am I going to regret more when I lay my head down on my pillow at night? Am I going to regret not following through on the promises that I made to myself, or am I going to regret not doing the thing that I'm giving up in order to take care of myself too? This leads me to another theory that I've really liked for this new year too. And do you know Mel Robbins?
Yes, I think I know exactly what you're going to say. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's awesome. It's everywhere right now.
So good. So if anyone's listening and you don't know it is Mel Robbins, right?
Yeah. You're right.
She wrote a book called The Let Them Theory. I haven't read it, but I see her content all over talking about it. And it's basically like, making the decisions for yourself and just letting everybody have their own reactions and letting go of that. Like you can't control what other people do, as long as you're kind of controlling like what you need to do for yourself. I think is essentially the basis of it. Like one thing that she talked about that made sense to me, like it really connected with me, was things like letting your family members be disappointed. Like if I'm setting boundaries with myself and I'm burnt out and I can't come to visit, or whatever it is that we had planned, they're allowed to be disappointed for sure. And it is like a sense of love, in the sense that they're disappointed that we're not going to get together because they love us and they want to visit with us. But they're allowed to have that, just like I'm allowed to be disappointed with somebody else too. But that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with what I'm doing if it means that I'm taking care of myself and making sure that I am like what's the word? I'm functioning at a level that I can.
For sure. I think if anyone wants to check out that Let Them theory, Mel Robbins has done lots of free podcasts on her channel about it. So if you don't want to read or buy the book, you can listen there, and it's all the good stuff. And it's
Oh yeah.
really talking about how sometimes by saying no to other people, we're saying yes to ourselves.
Yeah.
And I read this other thing that talked about like how when we get married, we make marriage vows to the other person. Why aren't we making vows to ourselves about what we want and what we're going to prioritize and how we're going to align our actions with our values and start
Yeah.
making choices that are in alignment with who we want to be and not who people think we should be or what we think we should do, but really stripping it back. And that takes a lot of identity work. It takes a lot of like
Mm,
doing all the uncomfortable things, but I think it's well worth it to really align with what you value and how you want the rest of your life to go.
yeah,
Important.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember who was talking about this too. Talking about doing like scary things, like because
Mm-hmm.
um sometimes the work that it takes in order to really like uncover who you are and who you want to be and what direction you want your life to go to, there are going to be times when you're going to be taking steps that feel really scary.
Mm-hmm.
But and that was something for me for a long time was really uncomfortable for me. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really until I started working on a business that I really loved that I started to kind of get good about taking steps that were scary
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that the outcome is probably worth it,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what the outcome is. Because
Right.
usually, if it fails, it's a learning lesson and that's okay. And
Mm-hmm.
we learn from it. If it goes really, really well, then it was really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know that looking back on my life, like especially in my 20s, I stayed really comfortable in my little bubble because
Mm-hmm.
I was scared of failure. I was scared of like
Mm-hmm.
getting outside of that comfort zone to take those steps that are scary. And
Mm-hmm.
that could be any amount. I'm not talking about like making like dramatic changes,
Right.
but there are even little things in your life that can feel scary. Like setting a boundary with certain people in your life can feel really scary.
Mm-hmm.
But and and that was something I really had to learn was like, and I learned it through therapy and finally getting the like courage to set
Mm-hmm.
a boundary with certain people in my life was so anxiety inducing,
Mm-hmm.
but it made my relationship better with them as a
Right.
result.
Yeah.
So, like, so going back to boundaries and motherhood and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing. Like, if you want to be the best mom you can be, this might also mean setting boundaries with other people so that you can take care of yourself, or setting boundaries with yourself so that you can take care of yourself. So it's a lot of inner work.
It is, and it is worth it in the end. It's painful when you're starting, and especially everyone has their own issues and their own history and past. There could be some very painful things to work
Oh
through
yeah.
through childhood and all of that stuff. But it is, like I said, realigning with who you want to be is very powerful, and it does give you courage to jump through those hoops when you have to, and because there's something you're looking for on the other side,
Yeah.
and that's what will keep driving us. I'm
Yeah.
wondering what like when you look at your life and your priorities or your clients, like how do people really pare down? What is it that they should be prioritizing and focusing on? Maybe just in health, but just in general. How do we really like decide which balls we're going to juggle with?
That's true. Like, I will stand by my statement that like your health in whatever
Mm-hmm.
means that looks like for you, it should be a glass ball. So even if
Mm-hmm.
you're starting out the year right now like wanting to focus on that, like make it like that. Yeah, I guess the thing is it depends on the person, right? And
Mm-hmm.
where they are.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had a client that really wants to change their health markers
Mm-hmm.
because they're not very healthy right now, or like just not in a state of like well-being right now, and they want to get
Mm-hmm.
healthier for their kids, this is you've probably had unhealthy behaviors for a very long
Mm-hmm.
period of time, and it's going to take time to get used to implementing new behaviors in order to become a healthier version of yourself and improve those health markers. So that is where like this has to be a glass ball, because if you
Mm-hmm.
don't change those behaviors that align with those health goals, then you're going to go back into those unhealthy behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I might have other clients who maybe are further down the road and they just want to kind of like level up what they're doing. So I feel like it's whatever you are newly implementing for yourself that you really want to focus on, whether it's learning more about nutrition, whether it's working out more consistently, those those newer things should be the glass ball, just so it becomes more of a habit in your lifestyle rather than just something you keep putting off.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think that's really powerful. That's a really good way to think about it. I think our health is definitely a glass ball, and I think that has so many things attached to it. Like we have goals, of course, like specific things we want to accomplish or do. But I see like just overall well-being and just feeling well physically and emotionally so that you can just carry on with the rest of your life. Like that is a high priority.
Yeah. And it just improves your quality of life so much more too.
Exactly.
Like when we focus on our health and we have to remember that everything is it's on a spectrum too. So I feel like the thing that kind of freezes a lot of women into starting a health journey is their expectations of what like being healthy it looks like.
Right.
So a lot of people have this expectation that like, well, if I want to get fit, I need to work out 5 days a week for an hour and I just don't have time for that. And it's like, no, you don't. You can start with 15-minute walks a day, like anything that you're not doing right now, but you can increase in small increments that feel more realistic for you is the right direction. And then as you kind of habitually build these different factors of your lifestyle, eventually you're going to get to a place where these things are going to become second nature and they're going to be part of your day-to-day life. So maybe it is working out. Like maybe you do want to go to the gym for an hour and that's like, you know, a few days a week and that's your goal. But I think a lot of people feel like that if they don't meet a certain threshold, then it's not worth it.
Right.
Whereas it's like, no, like there's a spectrum with a lot of different things with health. So if you're starting small, that's the right direction too.
Right.
So as little as 2 days a week of workouts can be really, really beneficial. And then movement overall, I would say too, is something that can be a little bit easier because it's just being more cognizant of how much you're moving throughout the day. Anyways, I'm kind of losing track of where I was going with this in my head.
No, I think it's good. It's there's not a like big take all approach to health, and it's like it's a long game. It's
a long game, and I think it's remembering that it's not a short term. It's not a short term thing. If you want to be a healthier person, you have to look at the things you're doing on a day-to-day life and changing those choices to making the healthier decisions that are going to have the like an outcome that's going to service your well-being rather than just like say fat loss kind of thing. So like I talk about this a lot, whereas like a lot of people start their health journey because of fat loss, but we have to remember the other benefits so that you can continue those behaviors. Like we don't stop them once you reach a certain weight. Right. You want to continue them for like the foreseeable future to improve your life.
For sure. And I think it was Mel Robbins as well in one of her podcasts that talked about like doing an audit of your life, an audit list of like, what am I doing now? What's actually going on in my life? What am I prioritizing now? And then comparing it to a list of what you want to be prioritizing or what your values truly are when you sit and think about them on their own. And I think that's a really good spot to kind of see where the gaps are.
Yeah, that's a really good one too, for sure. Almost like a pros and cons list of your life, but like in a way of like, what can I start with kind of thing too.
Right. And for health, it might be focusing on, not the physical changes that can happen, but how do you want to feel in your body? How do you want to feel running around with your kids? How do you want to feel walking through Wonderland in this, I don't know, wherever, just examples.
And those are so much more, to me, those are so much more powerful reasons than what the weight is on the scale.
Right.
So, and that's what I really try to drive home with my clients is like, okay, like we can use your weight on the scale to help with certain types of progress. There's also nothing wrong with superficial goals
Mm-hmm.
either. Or I shouldn't say superficial, but surface layer goals.
Mm-hmm.
But those deeper goals that allow you to see the improvements that your lifestyle is helping you to make and to improve the quality of life that you have and the things that you're able to do and feel good about, that's the
Mm-hmm.
part that we have to remember is like the best part of making those healthier decisions. It's
Mm-hmm.
how you're going to be able to show up in your life, how long you're going to be able to live for, mitigating illnesses and diseases that nobody wants to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
um and like, yeah, how you show up as a parent, like it's so much
Mm-hmm.
better to be able to know that you lived your um you during your parenthood, especially with like little kids, like you only get so much time with your kids. So when you're in your 50s and 60s and you look back on your life with your children, do you want to remember them growing up and you're sitting on the couch next to them, like watching them do everything, or was it better to like remember participating with them? I guess that's the other thing, is like people have to decide what they want to be able to look back on and like see what kind of life they would have wished they would have had.
Mm-hmm.
But your lifestyle allows like opens up those doors for you too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you were right about saying that there's so much more benefits to that than just physical changes, like our mental health being improved and being able to live a more authentic life when we are feeling more
Mm-hmm.
present, we feel in control of our health. Like that is I think there's a big distinguishing factor between like your health and well-being versus just your appearance. I think there's a
Yeah.
big, for right now
Yeah.
especially, there's a big focus on I don't just want to look good, I want to feel good and I want to live longer, and I don't want any health issues as we get older and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. I think it's, yeah, for moms it's definitely what a lot of conversations that are happening.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
even for women in particular, things like osteoporosis is something that
Mm-hmm.
we are more prone to after we turn 40. Like you
Mm-hmm.
start losing a really big percentage of our bone capacity
Mm-hmm.
after a certain age. So doing things like exercise and weightlifting and stuff like that
Mm-hmm.
all really helps to strengthen those bones. And when we have stronger bones, and as we get older, we're going to be at like less likely to have those falls and
Mm-hmm.
broken hips and things like that you see a lot of older, more frail elderly women go through. Um, I work with seniors,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the times I've seen when I have worked with seniors who have broken hips or have had bad falls and things like that, that's where you usually see a big decline in their like
Mm-hmm.
mental status and or their overall quality of life. Like those falls can
Mm-hmm.
be really detrimental.
Of course.
But as women, if we're able to stay strong and really focus on how our bodies function and keeping them like strong and able,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to have so much more independence for so much longer because we've kept up with that.
Yeah, and we know like having any type of kind of sedentary lifestyle where you're sitting a lot or not moving very often, like that has huge impacts on all of that,
Mm-hmm.
physical, mental
Oh yeah.
health as well.
Yeah.
And that's why I walk, honestly, and why I've kept it going ever since, is because I just know that it'll help me one day in the long run if I'm
Yeah.
just going and doing it. And yeah, it's just really about making it a priority in my schedule.
Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
forget who it is. There's another trainer online, and she has like a phrase where she says, I don't train for my bikini body, I train for my old lady body, which I really
Yes,
like.
that's really great. It is true.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you think about one day you'll have grandchildren, right? And how do you want to show up for
Hmm.
them? That's very
Yeah.
long-term
Right?
thinking,
Like
but
I want to play with my grandkids,
mhm,
So
of
yeah, I know there's so
course.
many other aspects to that. I
Yeah.
know, so we kind of segued back into health about it
Hmm.
being a glass ball and all the reasons why it should be
Hmm.
a glass ball. I'm wondering if you think there should be any other glass balls that might help somebody align their values to their lifestyle and how they prioritize things.
Hmm. Well, I think like just on my end, mental health is a huge, and it does really go hand in hand with physical health.
It
Like
does. Yeah.
they work together simultaneously. A lot of those hormones are the same. So I think, yeah, anything that you need to do for yourself is a glass ball. I think a lot of people, what you said is about struggling with the time of where to fit it in and how much, like, again, we sometimes think, well, I need an hour, or I need even longer than that. And I've been really like breaking down my schedule into smaller chunks that can afford for more of those glass balls. And I think making it a high priority to my family as well. Like even to I have a 5-year-old son, and I will tell him, like, he's at the age where he can go and color by himself. And I can say, listen, I need this 15 minutes to do whatever it is for myself, and setting that boundary. And it works both ways. Like we do it for each other. And getting other people on board and setting that example.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
5 has been such a good age. I mean, my son's not 5 yet, but like this age group has been really nice. My daughter is about to turn 2, and she is fully in the mommy stage. And she's the one that I have to mitigate with tasks, because she just wants to be with me 24/7. And I love it. But at the end of the day, I'm like, can you please go to your dad? Like,
of course.
But she's also the one that, like, you know, I rely on her nap schedule to try to get things done, because there's things that are just so much easier for me to do if she's not attached to my hip. I've tried this year, I don't know why I started it, I just kind of was trying to get up at 5 a.m. to do a workout. And in that way, like, I also have more free time during her nap to do, like, maybe work on coaching or whatever it is I need to do. But 5, I'm like, oh, this is like such a sweet spot. Like, they still want to hang out with you, but they're also old enough to do independent things, which has been lovely. So I don't know if you find the same thing. Like, I'm just really enjoying this age and like what they're discovering and stuff.
For sure. But I can totally hear you on the challenges of having a younger child who you can't say, hey, go and do that for 15 minutes, because you truly don't get that. And I think you and I are both in the 5 a.m. club together, because that is what I wake up early to have alone time for myself, or to get something done. And I enjoy it. I wake up at 5 and I'm like excited. This is my time for myself. Not every day excited, but I think that is my way of prioritizing my glass balls. And the days that I'm not able to do that, I feel really out of sorts. Like, oh, I didn't get my time. And that's the only way I've been able to keep sane.
I know. And I think this is a good example of those sacrifices, like the trade-off, right? Like, what's the trade-off? I sleep in for another hour, but then I don't get time to do this for myself. Or is the trade-off is I don't sleep for as long, but I get this time to myself that sets me up for the day. So because I know a lot of my clients are like, I don't know how you do 5 a.m. And I think it depends on the phase of life that you're in. Like, my kids, thankfully, my kids are both sleeping through the night and stuff like that. So it makes it possible for me. But for a mom who's waking up multiple times during the night, 5 a.m. might not be as realistic.
For sure. Oh, sometimes I drop that ball. Sometimes I'm not doing the 5 a.m. because I need sleep, and I don't feel guilt about that. Oh, I didn't get up. It's like, okay, this is what my body's saying. And I'm going to, it's day by day, right? Your glass balls, I guess, and rubber balls change.
Well, and then some days, exactly. Yeah. Some days that sleep is the way that you're taking care of yourself for one reason or another. But for the girls who are finding that they're short on time, but you are in a space where, like, you are sleeping through the night, or you could be better about going to bed at a certain time. That's another thing that I have a few clients struggle with, is that they don't get a good sleep schedule because they're staying up too late, scrolling or whatever it is, because they finally have some downtime where they're by themselves, and they enjoy that, but then they stay up too late, and then they don't sleep well, and then it just kind of snowballs into everything else. So I feel like maybe actually I would argue that honestly a glass ball at within like reason, because sleep isn't always something that we can necessarily control,
Mhm.
but prioritizing sleep makes a
Mm,
massive difference in
yes.
like the choices that we make during the day, our energy
Mhm.
levels, how
Mhm.
we choose what to eat, like, you know, like
Oh
it
my
just
gosh. Yep.
it makes such a big difference.
Mhm.
So I would argue that like prioritizing sleep, so making sure
Yes.
you have a good bedtime routine and you're going to
Mhm.
bed at a decent time so that you can like get the rest that your brain needs
Mhm.
would be one of my glass balls too.
Of course, it's a protective factor against your
Hmm.
health as well, getting enough sleep and feeling well. I think that's super important. So don't be waking up at 5 a.m. if that's not
No, no,
if you can't,
no.
right? But that's
But if you're staying up
yeah.
until 1 a.m. scrolling,
Hmm.
I advise against that.
Of course.
Like,
Yeah.
honestly, I feel like an old lady. Like, we go to bed at 8.
Hmm.
My husband gets up really early for work. He has to be in Hamilton for 5 a.m. So, he by nature is going to bed at 8. And because of that, my son and I will go to bed at the same time with him.
Hmm.
So we're just all in bed, and it just sets my son up because he sees mom and dad going to bed, he'll go to bed.
Yep. Hmm.
So we go to bed at 8, but I'll stay up in our bed with the lights out, but I have my
Hmm.
Kindle and I'll read for an hour.
Yep.
So I'm always trying for like lights out at 9
Hmm.
so that I get my full out like 8 hours of sleep for 5 o'clock.
Hmm.
So I mean, it makes me feel like an old lady in some ways, but I'm like, you know what? I feel so good. I feel so
Exactly.
good.
And
Um,
that's what your priority is, that you're
yes.
prioritizing that. That's good.
So again, another trade-off is like, are you going to feel good knowing that like if you're staying up late and scrolling or
Hmm.
watching Netflix or whatever it is, it's fine, but is that going to leave you feeling your best come the morning
The next
time
day.
when you're not as well rested and all of that stuff? Or is
Hmm.
it worthwhile to put all of that away and your self-care is actually making sure that you get a good night's sleep?
Yeah,
But
totally. Somebody that just reminded me, somebody said something to me once, and it was about drinking, about how, when you're drinking and you're kind of borrowing your happiness from the next day because you'll be hungover. But that is kind
yeah,
of the same about sleep too,
yeah,
or whatever you're choosing to do is like, will this make me the best version of myself tomorrow?
yes,
Probably
yeah,
not. A tip that I'll share that I do is like every Sunday night or Monday is I write out my whole schedule for the week. And it's,
nice.
it's my things that need to happen, but there's also things that I want to happen and that I'm deciding are a glass ball. And I will set a reminder in my phone, like everything I can to make sure that that happens.
I love
And
that.
that's
That's
all.
awesome.
Yeah. Cause if I just wait day by day, everything gets pushed always to the next day because there's no plan.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Planning is really another like underrated skill to have.
Totally.
Um, Especially when you're juggling multiple balls as
Hmm.
well and multiple kids or, whatever that the case may be. Every like even down to your nutrition, right? Like
Hmm.
meal planning for your family can be really helpful in terms
Hmm.
of like even just having like a flexible schedule of like knowing what you're going to make or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, is a really good way to just kind of take the guesswork out because you've already
Hmm.
pre-planned it for yourself, and then that way you're not rushing home and like panicking about what you're going to have for dinner because you already
Hmm.
planned it out for yourself and you're like, okay, this is what we're going to have. So
Hmm.
those little things they go a long way for sure.
For sure. Yeah. And I think like finding time in your schedule to do those and plan them out and map them out is
Hmm.
important. And then to also look at your schedule because a lot of things I put in, I think are I have to's. And when I
Yeah,
really look at them, I'm like, okay, do I have to do this? And it's like, no, I might be disappointing somebody. I might be letting somebody down. But if I
yeah,
save that time for myself, then I'm not letting myself down in that
yeah,
moment.
for
So,
sure. Yeah. And I
mhm.
think there too, like there's a time and a place to let someone down or not let them
Yeah.
down. There's a time and a place to push through or not to push through, but
Mhm.
and that's where it kind of gets a little bit complicated because then
Mhm.
people who are learning how to do this are like, well, what am I supposed to do? You
Right.
kind of have to assess like, your life, how things are going as a whole. Like if you're having a really, really crappy week and you have something scheduled that you are not really sure you want to go to, maybe that's a time to cancel because the week has just been too chaotic. But if it's something that you just don't really want to go to, but you've had it like a decent week, then maybe that's something that you push through for, or whatever the case may be. It's such a case by case basis, but
it's true. And it's really individual. It's really like tapping into yourself and what you need and what your body is saying or screaming at you to do. And really honoring that in those moments.
Trial and error too, right? Like just like all things considered. It just takes some time. And I feel like that's where people feel like they don't have it, or they lose focus on it, or something like that. But I feel like as long as you're bringing yourself back to whatever you're kind of focusing on or trying to improve, then that's the part that we really want, is like that same kind of consistency, even though we might stray away from it once in a while.
For sure.
Oh, well, that's it. And it's a really good theory, just because it just helps everybody categorize the things that they feel like they need to do or accomplish too, as well.
For sure. Yeah, I love this conversation. I feel like it's very timely. It's at a good time of the year to get organized and really check in with ourselves. And okay, what did not serve us last year? What are we not going to do anymore? What are we not putting on the back burner anymore? And going into the new year, how can we really, because I see that everywhere. It seems like everyone's New Year's resolution is to kind of get intentional and to really be cautious about what we're spending our time on and our energy, more importantly. And really trying to protect that to self-preserve, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because like we're getting pulled in like so many different directions, and we feel a lot of pressure from social media in terms of like self-comparison and what we think we should be doing, or what the perfect life looks like. But the reality is, I feel like we're all kind of flying by the seam of our pants. Like nobody actually knows what they're doing. We're just all doing our best. So it's I don't know. I have such a love-hate relationship with social media for that reason, but
me too.
At the same time, like I love it for the connection. But when you're seeing like very aesthetic, kind of picture perfect things, and you're like, it can be hard sometimes.
I think especially for moms and new moms who think, oh, that's like that, but mine's not like that.
No.
And we think something's wrong with us, but it's not the truth.
No. And so I recently talked about I did see some things about some people completely boycotting New Year's resolutions. But the intention behind it was, I'm not doing New Year's resolutions, boycotting it because I want to feel like enough. And I thought that was really interesting, because I was like, if you're making a resolution or a goal, I would hope that it's not in the name of making yourself feel like you need to be more, but from a standpoint of like, this is going to improve my life in some way, like bring more quality or make me feel better or something to that effect, not because you don't think you're good enough as you are right now. So even if you're like a mom and you think you need to be more or do better or like whatever it is, I would hope that a goal is not because you don't feel like you're enough as you are. And I feel like if you are somebody who is boycotting a resolution in the name of like, I want to feel like I'm enough, that in itself is kind of a goal as well, because that takes some inner work to like find that piece where you do feel like enough, right? But that takes some like self-exploration in the sense of like, why don't I feel like enough? Right? Like what is making me feel like I'm not doing enough, or I'm not enough of a mom, or like whatever it is that you think that you need to be.
I feel like that probably fits into that comparison culture of like, enough. Who are you comparing enough to? Is it to somebody else, or are you to yourself?
Exactly.
And yeah, I kind of agree with that. Like everyone should feel enough as they are without any, just by showing
Yeah.
up and being present.
Yeah.
And I think when we get into the trap of comparing ourselves to people, and not just comparing maybe our goals from last year's goals to this goals, or comparing
Hmm.
ourselves it's only ourselves in the race.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
I think that's where it needs to very much, what you're saying, is turn inward and see, why is
Yeah.
it that I don't feel that way from the
Yeah.
beginning. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because goals, I feel like, shouldn't be they shouldn't be a reflection on what you think is negative. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like in a sense, like it should be something that's going to give you something to look forward to, or is
Mm-hmm.
going to bring some sort of value to you in some sense. So if you have a goal of, getting healthier or learning something new, like that's a really great goal, because like once you learn something, you don't necessarily lose that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You're becoming more intelligent and more knowledgeable. Um, or I don't know, like even silly little goals. Like I have the goal of like wanting to be able to do a handstand by the end of the year. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not because I don't think, you know what I mean? Like it just gives me something to look forward to. It gives me
Right.
something to work towards.
And they're
And
not thinking, oh, if I do this handstand, all people will love me, or people will
no, no,
accept, right?
it's
It's
just,
like
yeah,
you have a goal for yourself that really isn't based in anyone else's
no,
feelings or perceptions. And that's,
e-
yeah,
yeah.
totally get that.
Yeah, it's just something that should like make you feel excited and give you like a sense of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And having a sense of purpose brings more quality to your life in that sense, because you have something to work towards. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's something to really understand about goals and goal setting, and like there's proof there too that having goals, like people who have goals are generally happier people because they have that sense of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So it's yeah, it was an interesting topic to come across for sure, was
Yeah.
that perception of like not like no New Year's resolutions or
Right.
whatever that is. But
Yeah.
um yeah,
Yeah. I get where it comes from.
yeah, I get where it
Yeah.
comes from too. But it was just like, yeah, maybe it was just the way it was presented that was a little bit like, it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
wrong, but what you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Did you
Awesome.
set, do you have any New Year's resolutions or goals for this year that you were, or did you more self-reflection, or what kind of things are you thinking?
Yes, I definitely took an audit list of what is
Mhm.
not working in my life. And along with that, I see these like 75 hard or medium, and I was confused by it at first. I'm like, what is this? And I looked into it, and it looks like a whole bunch of goals all at once, and you're supposed to like do them all hard or medium, and
Yeah.
really accomplish them. And I've maybe in the past, that's probably how I might have gone about things, is like, well, I want to change all these things, so I'm going to do it all right now. And then when
Yeah.
I fail in 2 weeks, I'll forget the whole paper and we'll just pick up next year. But I
Yeah.
really focused on being intentional and about focusing on how I want to feel. I want to feel more peace. I don't want to feel like I'm rushing from one thing to the next constantly. I want
Mhm.
to feel like I have time and space for people when they say, hey, can we hang out? And I say, oh, sure, I'm available in 2 months. Like, that's not
Yeah.
how I want to live my life. And I just really did a whole overhaul of like, what is it for right now that I need and want in my life for myself? And how am I going to communicate that to other people so that they see how important this is to me and help me get
I
that
love
success?
that.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like one of those goals that I feel like not a lot of people would think about in terms of like how you can improve your life from that from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that just shows how much work you've done on yourself to like get to this point and recognize that in your life, where you can like now make those kinds of changes to like help yourself out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think becoming a mom was a huge catalyst for that. It's a very concrete, like, you're not living for yourself anymore, and
Yeah.
your choices and decisions impact somebody else and your whole family. And I just
Hmm.
kept and still think like I cannot continue to live in a state of stress and burnout. And I kept thinking those things were happening to me, like all this stress is just coming at me, and I can't decipher it. But when I really looked at it, I was like, okay, I'm overscheduling myself. Like that's one thing that I'm really trying to like focus on, because then yeah, the walk that I had planned on going on that I really want to go, that's the first thing that's dropped when I'm overscheduling, and that's not what I value. So
Yeah.
yeah,
We're on the
sure.
same page with that for sure. Like
Mm-hmm.
becoming a mom is like that, holy crap. Like
Mm-hmm.
I need to make some changes or my life is
Yeah.
not going to be what I want it to be. Um, we kind of went like that's a big reason why I started my online coaching business, was to give me the flexibility so
Mm-hmm.
that, because before I started this, I was doing 12-hour rotating shifts opposite of my husband. And as much as that was great for childcare, because we were like, if I was at work, my husband
Mm-hmm.
was home and vice versa. We were so burnt out. And that was when we just
Mm-hmm.
had our son. So
Mm-hmm.
we knew if we wanted to have more kids, we're like, there's no way, because the other
Yeah.
person's gone for like 14 hours by the time you're done your
Mm-hmm.
shift and home. So to be alone by yourself for 14 hours a day and then
Yes.
go to work or whatever, it was just like
Right.
way too much.
Yeah.
So I feel like in learning that I could take some things into my own hands,
Mm-hmm.
I really learned that there's so much within my control that might be perceived as out of my control,
Yes.
but there's so much that you have so much control over your life. Like that
Mm-hmm.
I feel like people have way more control than what they give themselves credit for.
Mm-hmm.
So the choice to like start a business was a big one, because
Of
I
course.
had to learn how to do this, and then like, learn how to get clients and all of these other
Mm-hmm.
things. But eventually I was able to reduce my hours at the hospital and go part-time. And now I'm only there
Mm-hmm.
2 days a week for 8-hour shifts. And my
Okay.
husband even he made an entire career change too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it took both of us, but we're now in a phase of life where like I'm home with the kids for the most part. Like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
I'm juggling my business and my kids, but I have the flexibility to do that. And we're not
Mm-hmm.
burnt out parents who
Yeah.
are going between 12-hour shifts and childcare kind of thing. So,
Yeah. I think
and
sometimes it comes to that big moment of like, this is not working for
yes,
us. It's
this
not.
is not what I want my life to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel like there are a number of people, like there's a big population of people who are complacent with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also a big contributing factor to the health and well-being of society as it
Mm-hmm.
is. Because we're so
Mm-hmm.
stressed out, we're overworked, we are under rested,
Mm-hmm.
undernourished, under
And
exercised.
we
And
think that that is how we should be, or that's the
yep,
baseline. It's
yep.
not.
Right? And
Yeah.
then you look at people who are healthy, and even people like who like go to the or very passionate about health and fitness and stuff, for some reason that's the anomaly, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you're an outlier if you are somebody who's fit or whatever. And it's just a very interesting way that society views things.
Mm-hmm.
And but I feel like a big part of that is that complacency of not really taking the reins into your own hands and understanding that like you have more control than what you think you
Mm-hmm.
do.
Yep.
So,
And I think that's generational too. Like, how long have we been told, just get back on the horse, just do it, just go
yeah,
forward and stop stewing in it? And it's like, but we need time and space for our feelings to process, to sit in the crap and say, like, this
yeah,
doesn't feel good and I need to make some changes.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're
Mm-hmm.
right. It's always just been like work, 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 work.
Mm-hmm.
But how has that affected our generations going forward? Because if you've had parents that all they did was work, you didn't
Mm-hmm.
get the time and attention that you needed.
Right.
And, it goes just, I know,
It
it's very
snowballs.
interesting. Yeah, it does
Mm-hmm. Oh
snowball.
yeah, we could probably talk for hours and hours
Yeah,
about it all.
yeah,
It's so interconnected.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was
Mm-hmm.
an amazing conversation.
Yes.
Um, I have a few clients in mind who listen to this podcast and will
Great.
really benefit from this, I think. Um, and hopefully this will help like other women with their goals for the year, or like however they want to improve their overall life for 2025. I can't believe we're in 2025.
I know, it's wild.
Like,
Crazy.
how did we meet 5 years ago? What happened?
I know. It does fly.
Yeah,
Yes.
2020 felt like, I don't know, a couple years ago or something, but somehow it just,
We're here.
yeah, we're here.
For sure.
Okay, so thank you so much, Cierra. I think we
Yeah.
can wrap that up
Okay.
here. Like, it's a good spot to stop. But
Okay. Can I give a quick shout out if you have any local
absolutely.
listeners for our Flora's Walk 2025 event? It'll be held on Saturday, May the 10th. So that's the day before Mother's Day. If you're in Haldeman or anywhere in the local area, it'll be held at the Caledonia Fairgrounds. And we're going to make it really special this year. It's all about creating awareness for postpartum mental health and raising funds so that we can offer free programming. We were able to run a free postpartum support group at the library this past fall, and it was a lot of these same conversations about boundaries and about prioritizing ourselves as mothers. So we would love to have anyone who could come out. And yeah, thank you so much for having me, for the support. And yeah, it's been awesome.
I'm excited for Flora's Walk. That'll be like a special, because it's so close to Mother's Day this year. That'll be really cool.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so we're going to end it there. So thank you so much, Cierra, for coming on and having this conversation. For everybody else who's listening, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.